I'm curious about this. Do you think we've made progress towards parity? I mean, Pose wins, what, third in the row? Pro Chargers, Justin Bond put on a hell of a show this weekend. Thank God he's okay. Walked away from a scary incident there on the top end at Brainerd International. Do you feel like the recent rule changes from the NHRA have taken us closer to, I think you'll agree, the illusion of parity in NHRA Pro Mod drag racing?
It's closer than what it's been. It's not what I think needs to be done. I don't know. You can never compete with something that makes 55 pounds of boost and is capable of supporting 4,000 horsepower and have it paired up with 2 or 3 other combinations that make 2,800 to 3,000 horsepower and make 40 pounds of boost. What you are doing and what you have done is you're creating the turbo problem paradox all over again. You know how many turbo cars there'd still be if they would have just made everybody put some 67 millimeter or 72 or 76 millimeter turbos on cars 10 years ago? Remember when they had 94 millimeter turbos and no boost controller in quarter mile, and they like put a boost controller on the 94s and the whole world ended because they would never be able to compete? Yes. It's the same thing. The supercharger that's on the car, the Pro Charger, is the cheapest thing these guys buy. I promise you. If they do not put the right size compressor on it, and I actually had a conversation with some Pro Charger crew chiefs this weekend, and I think they're starting to see that. If they don't put the right size compressor on this thing, by the time they get parity, because they eventually will, if there's anybody left that'll race, it'll be so hard and so complicated to race that you'd never consider wanting to do it. So, yes, we're closer to parity. We made one run in Q1 in Brainerd, and the NHRA officials on the top end are jumping up and down that we got parity.
We did it.
One run. We're within 200 or 300. So we finally got it. And I looked at him. I said, "Are y'all insane? Like, it's going to take you 3 or 4 races to see if we have parity." Now, it's closer than what it's been. I had a car that could win this weekend. We broke a rod running JR. Barely made it back up there for E2. Janice and his whole team and JR had to help us put an engine in. We really struggled with some mechanical stuff. The timing was 4 degrees off and we got crushed. But Jose only went 584 on that run. So, like, I had a car that was capable of winning. I think Brandon Snyder did too. So it is closer. I definitely don't think they're, like, tapped out or anything. I mean, they got a rule change on Thursday before the race, and they still were able to win. So definitely they're not tapped out. But it's better.
Why not put a small, like, what? There's 140s on the Pro Charger, like an F1. It's a 140, right?
Yeah, 140.
Why not put a smaller blower on? I mean, what's stopping that? Why can't that conversation be? I was told,
and it is being now more. To start with, they didn't want to change it after, they got some information that allowed them to go down a path from some people that weren't being as honest as they should have been and forthcoming. And then they didn't want to change the blower because of the cost of the supercharger, because they're expensive. Those things are expensive. You got to have 2 or 3 of them, right? But if you look at what they've spent versus what they would have spent if they put the right compressor on it, it's very small. The thing needs a 131 on it, needs a 136, something.
To your point, I remember Steve Petty told me this would have been at like Gainesville probably 10 years ago. Crew chiefing on the yellow C5 Corvette of Troy Coughlin's. He said to me, Wes, what they need to do is they need to let us take this car to a track like the Monday after a national event prep, and I'll bring 40 turbos. I'll bring 67s, 68, whatever, 70, 72, and let's just run it until we find the turbo. Because to your point, Shannon Jenkins said this to me, I think the same weekend. He looked at me in the face and he said, Wes, until all these cars are limited mechanically, the same way our car is limited, a blower car is limited by the size of the pulley on it, right? These nitrous cars are limited by the cubic inches. And until those turbocharged cars are limited mechanically, not by some device that tries to limit them, but are literally mechanically eliminated, we will never be where this thing could be, with everybody having to your point, run the rods out of them.
Right. You got to target a power level. And like ours, nitrous car, 2,800, 3,000. Root spoiler, 2,800, 3,000. I think the turbo cars, if you were to, right now is the perfect time to rebuild the turbo because there's no cars coming. You're not going to cost anybody $1 to come. Go ahead and take a stab at putting some small turbos on it. Or if you don't want to do that, give them a couple pounds of boost because they probably need it. If everybody didn't have their can in a cookie jar, they probably would have been okay at the boost level. And then you got to put something on the Pro Charger car that doesn't make 4,000, because when it makes 4,000 or 3,500, it's really hard quarter mile to reel it in. And I'm preaching to the choir. But we you know, they got to do something. At the heart of car count is parity. People want to win, and if you do not have a chance to show up and win, it's going to hurt car count.